Yo, what's shaking, everybody? It's us, the Men in Black. I'm Geoff Ketchum. That's Anwar. Richardson. It is another edition of the Orangebloods Texas football channel. And we're doing a video on Casey Thompson going to Nebraska, kind of breaking news of the day on Friday. Do us a favor. That's what we're talking about. Leave your comments in the comments section. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done that. Like the video, notifications, like all that stuff. It'll be a gift for us going into the weekend. Anwar, this isn't a big shock. Nebraska has always been a team, it seems like, since the moment he entered the portal, was one of the schools that was made the most sense, seemed like a good fit, always kind of discussed with. There were other schools in the mix. I'm curious for your thoughts, but for me, this seems to be about as good of a spot as he was probably going to find.
Yeah, it's funny. One of our good friends on Twitter, Aquarius, was at Love Hall. He was joking today, talking about, man, I sure hope I never have kids who go to schools that I probably you would hate, because you think of Charles Thompson is like, first his kid goes to Texas and as an OU guy, and then he goes to Nebraska. You're like, damn, what did I do as a father? But overall, Catch, it's not a bad fit, for Casey. It's not a bad situation. Like, to your point, it seems to be the one name that we heard consistently throughout. It seems to be that it not a huge surprise that ends up being what its eventual landing spot is. I thought that Husker Online, Sean Callahan, I thought did a really good job as I was, kind of prepping for this, kind of outlining everything, for it. But it seemed like this, from the Nebraska perspective, a good situation, a kind of a quarterback that Scott Frost has been needing. He's been needing kind of a veteran quarterback, as our man Callahan describes, to replace Adrian Martinez when he left in December. So Casey seems to fit the bill. Played major college football. That's, huge stadium, huge following. So I don't think you'll have any problems as far as that is concerned. And it seems to be, the guy that, the guy to beat, but the guy that they want. And, I think hopefully for him, it ends up being a really good landing spot.
Yeah. By the way, Sean Callahan, a guy that I once took as an underage minor to a bar down on 6th Street. Shout out to Sean. It just means both of us are really old. Scott Frost, probably, they're a weird deal. Adrian Martinez was kind of the little engine that could for Nebraska last year, and kind of with his skill set carried Nebraska as far as he could, and it wasn't very far. So what they really need is a real upgrade at the quarterback position. Martinez goes into the portal and lands at Kansas State, and you think to yourself, yeah, no, he's got some Skylar Thompson in him, and that makes a little bit of a sense as a guy looking for a home that's probably more suited for his skill set. And Scott Frost wants a guy who's going to throw the ball around, and they want to surround that quarterback with playmakers, and they want their offense to be prolific in the passing game. So what they want to do versus what I think Casey is looking for in a platform to potentially set him up as an NFL draftable option in either a year or two, it makes a lot of sense. I think that in a weird way, the way that we talk about Steve Sarkisian and Quinn Ewers being wedded together, we might see that being the case with Scott Frost and Casey Thompson. Scott Frost needs to start winning some games at Nebraska, even if he's a legend, even if he's a guy with a big contract. You can't win 3, 4, 5 games a year at Nebraska and think that that's going to keep the masses happy. Like you said, they put a lot of people in the stands. It's been a long time since those people have been happy, and Scott Frost hasn't really yet made them happy. Casey Thompson now becomes probably the most important player in that Nebraska football program. And I think Casey will embrace that. I think that's what Casey wants to be, is a player that an entire program depends on for success. And I think he believes in himself, that a healthy version of himself can be that kind of a player. All right, go get him, Casey. Like, I think you'll find that Anwar and I may have debated like your presence in the Texas program for a long time, but I think Casey is an easy guy to root for. I think we'll watch Nebraska games in 2022 through the prism of how is Casey doing. You wish the guy nothing but success. This is probably his last chance to prove that thing at this level that he wants to prove. I sure hope he does, really and truly. I hope that we do a video in a couple of years where one of the things we're mentioning is Casey Thompson having collegiate success and then being able to go on to the next level and make all of his dreams come true. Like, that's what we're in this thing for, is to watch kids be able to make their dreams come true. It doesn't stop with Casey Thompson because he's no longer at Texas. Now it's about him being able to make the best of the situation he's now created for himself. And like I said, I think he goes in with a lot of confidence. That's probably half the battle for a guy like Casey.
No, you're right, Ketch. And, I think we'll watch it, when you said about watching the prism, I feel like we'll watch it through the prism that we watched Shane Buechele when he went to SMU. You kind of you were watching with interest, but you were wanting him to be successful. And when Shane was successful, Texas fans, rejoice. Like, Texas fans would get on Twitter and congratulate him. And, Sam Ellinger would get questions about, Casey. And there's Casey, get questions about Shane and his success. So, I think that's how people will look at it. I think, as time goes by, some of the things that maybe some of the hostility that maybe some people had towards him for whatever the reasons were, and I'm not quite sure as to why, that will subside. And I think people realize he's a Texas X. He got his degree here. He was a good soldier. He fought the good fight. We end up having a debate over which quarterback should start. And at the end of the day, we could all agree it was Casey that should have been the guy who was starting probably from day one. And, and now he gets to go to a program where he gets to feel like he's wanted, like he's the man there. All the things that we talked about, Ketch, and all the things that you caught in the press conferences from, this past season, where you just, you could tell that Sarkisian wasn't 100% sold, on him or either any of the quarterbacks, to be quite honest with you, if we're just keeping it a buck. He gets to go somewhere when he feels like, okay, that these guys really, really want me here. You never, it is a saying that, never go where you're tolerated, go where you're celebrated. He might have been tolerated here at Texas, but he'll be celebrated there at Nebraska. You talked about that fan base. Ketch, no matter what, that spring game will be packed, right? That we just know. So like Ohio State, Nebraska, they will pack out that spring game. And it'll probably be more excitement just because that's when you think about, when you start thinking about guys in the transfer portal, quarterbacks in the transfer portal, there's the big names like the Caleb Williams of the world or Spencer Rattlers of the world. But, Casey is in that at least top five, of the conversation that if you are a program, you can say, I landed this guy who was played hurt and all these other type of things. You feel good because when you think of quarterbacks who are in the portal, a lot of times catching you, and you portal surf all the time.
I love the portal.
It's a shoulder shrug, right?
It's like NFL free agency. I like to see who's upgrading and how are they how are they spending their money? Although it's a little different in college football. Is it now? I didn't say it's completely different. I said it's a little different.
Is it? NIL has made it a little bit of free agency and some money too. But when you think about some of the top names, I mean, it names, whether it's been the two I named, Quinn, Casey, there probably hasn't been a lot of quarterbacks in the portal that have moved the needle for you that you've said, oh, this guy comes in here and he ends up being kind of a, potential program changer. Casey Thompson goes to Nebraska, Ketch. And again, agreeing with everything that you're saying, it's going to be weird because I think we're going to agree more in 2022 than we'll disagree. He ends up being the guy that could save Scott Frost's job. Like, he ends up being that guy that if he goes out and has a good season and puts them in that, 10 win range, like Scott Frost is that savior that they hired him to be. Like, he ends up being the guy that is a job saver with a couple more years of eligibility left. So I think it ends up being a, interesting situation for him now that he's gone. And then now that he's gone, Catch, we'll have more conversations about what this means for, Hudson. Really, Catch, and this is probably a video for another day. We still got to talk about this. I still want to, what does this mean for Hudson? Like that's where my mind of just starts. It's like, I feel like Quinn has got a home. I feel like Casey has found his home. And I feel like Hudson is in kind of that middle ground where I'm just not quite sure what he does. And I guess he sees it out, but the Hudson Card thing is going to be like, for me, and I know this is a Casey Thompson video, so maybe just put a mental note. We'll come back to it at another point. But as the president of the Hudson Card fan club, I'm sure you have an interest in this as well.
Well, real quick on Hudson, I think the McComb School of Business and getting the degree there, he's probably at Texas as long as it takes for him to get his degree from the McComb School of Business. And that may mean that Texas gets another year out of him that they wouldn't have otherwise. Maybe it means they get two. Like, I don't know how this thing works out. But back to Casey real quick. Nebraska went 3-9 last year and 1-8 in the Big Ten. I think if I remember the stat correctly, most of their losses were within one score. They were in a lot of games and they didn't win them. And, if that reverses to the mean, it probably looks like they're a 6-6, 7-5 type of team if they're just getting some breaks last year. I think that the thing that Casey's got going for him that's a little different than if he's at Texas is I think coming on the heels of a 3-9 season, they can go 7-5 or 8-4. And I think that would be, they're probably borderline top 25 at that point, depending on what the 8-4 looks like. And if there's, a win over, maybe they beat a Michigan State or somebody like that, I think he gets, that's a roaring success in a way that we're going to do videos for the rest of the next 8 months where we talk about how happy are people going to be at 7-5 or 8-4. What Casey gets to do at Nebraska this year is have a margin of error that's decent. If they lose, if he gets in and he's the starting quarterback and they lose the second or third game of the season, it's not hit the panic button. And the way it works here in Austin is it is. You look what happened. Hudson Card. If Casey Thompson has a Hudson Card game, and now what he did against Arkansas has turned into a verb of sorts. But if that performance happens to Casey early in his Nebraska career, what happened to Hudson isn't going to happen to Casey because there won't be this pressure that lives inside the belly of the beast of the program that, oh God, a loss just happened. What do we do? So I just think that Casey will be able to grow in a way that Texas doesn't afford its quarterbacks often the time to do so. And I think that makes for a real good, he wants a place where he's definitely the starting quarterback. Unless he goes in and totally screws this thing up, that's who he's going to be for Nebraska. So he's going to have the support and the confidence of his head coach and the investment and the buy-in. It won't be life or death every game. And I think that that's kind of exactly where Casey Thompson needs to be. Nebraska isn't the sexiest destination that he could have ended up at, but it might just be the one with exactly the kind of profile that he needs. Because what you don't want to be is one of these guys that transfers. Think about Scott Brewer, goes from Baylor, or Charlie Brewer goes from Baylor to Utah. And even at Utah, they get 3 weeks into the season and they're like, okay, we're going to put Cameron Rising in. And you suddenly, as a grad transfer, Casey doesn't get another one of these moves probably. This is it. This is the big move. Yeah. And to go to a place where I think he's got room to grow, but also room to make a mistake or two and it not be felt like life or death, I think is really critical. We will continue to talk about the Texas quarterbacks over the course of every day and week and month that we do shows. And that luxury doesn't exist. It didn't for Hudson Card, and I'm convinced it won't for Quinn Ewers to an extent. He gets the Alabama game next year. Everybody is chalking that up as an L. But boy, lose to a UTEP or lose another game pre-Oklahoma on that schedule, and you'll start to hear the rabble from the Texas fan base about what do we got? What do we do? Texas fans can easily turn into the scene in Tommy Boy when he's got his, when he's got the roll in his hand and he's like, you pet it and you love it and then you just destroy it. And that has been what Texas can do to its quarterbacks at times. Like I said, go Casey Thompson. This was a good move for him. And at the end of the day, we say our goodbyes to him as a Texas Longhorn football product. And we just wish him well and the best of luck and hope that when he comes out of this on the other side, he's able to get out of it what he hoped he was able to get out of Texas.
Thank you, Casey, for giving Ketch and I a lot of debatable material in 2021. We appreciate you. We'll never forget you for that.
He's got to be worth it like 500 to 1,000 subscribers to the channel. Double if we just make him and Hudson, a one entity as a topic. No, you're exactly right. Look, do us a solid. Like the video. If you're rooting for Casey Thompson, leave your comments, your farewell speeches to Casey in the comments section. Subscribe to the channel. We will have videos on Monday, the Monday Overreaction Show, brought to you by Rogue Apothecary, therogueshop.com. Maybe the most popular podcast that we do every single week. It's just days away. Thanks for watching the channel. For Anwar and myself, we thank you. And if we haven't said it enough, Happy New Year's. I know there's like an expiration date on how long you can say that. And Larry David would say it's 3 days, but you know what? We haven't said it enough on the show. Here's to a wonderful year. Feels like the world's kind of due one. So you guys be good. Take care of each other. Until next time. Later.